Welcome to the Property Management Success Podcast, where we interview leaders in the industry to uncover the secrets to profitability, efficiency, and achieving true freedom, whether it's your time, money, or lifestyle. I'm your host, Tony Cline, and I'm here to help you build a wildly successful property management business. Let's get to it. Welcome back to another episode of the Property Management Success Podcast with Mark Brower. He's doing a little housekeeping on his camera there.
Hello.
And welcome back to the Property Management Aid Station. Ooh.
How's it going? Oh my gosh. Whoa, Tony. How do I say this in a really polite way? You look like you've aged 10 years.
Thanks. I have. Since 10 years ago, but also since running my Cocodona race. So.
Oh my gosh. Are we going to talk about it, or are we going to talk about property management stuff?
I think we'll do a little bit of both. Let's kind of tie them together. So let's give the folks an update, because the last two episodes I did was a one-on-one episode where I just kind of shared what I've learned about ultra running.
Nice.
And that was right before I left to go to Cocodona. So I went and ran the Cocodona 250-mile race through Arizona. Starts in Black Canyon City, just outside of Phoenix. Runs through some of the hot spots in Arizona. We go through Prescott. We go through
Jerome.
Crown
You go through
King.
Jerome?
Oh yeah, well, I got great stories about
Jerome.
We go through Jerome,
Old mining town.
and then end up in Flagstaff. So that's where the finish line is.
So epic, man. The whole thing is a net uphill, people. This is like you're starting at 1,400 elevation. You're ending up 7,000 elevation. You're doing over 200 miles through the desert. You're not sleeping.
I wish it was 200 miles, because I got a story about that. So I wish it was 200.
Oh, my gosh.
And actually, the course this year, apparently you guys have some Mexican horned owls or something out there, and they like to nest and to mate, and so because of that, they had to change part of the course. So
yeah, because if there's a runner within a half mile, they won't do that.
Yeah, the owls, they won't mate. Yeah, hikers fine, cars fine, bicyclists no problem. I think it's something about our shorts.
Electric powered, mountain bikes, fine,
no problem. So the race this year was 256 miles. And come down Mount Eldon. I don't know if you know where that's at.
The legendary Mount Eldon, of course.
Yeah. So that's kind of the final big climb, and then you got 6 or 7 miles after that to run into Flagstaff. So
yeah.
Anyway, long story short, the reason I wish this race was 200 miles, because I made it 214.6 or something like that miles. And wound up having to quit. And so, I fought through some stuff with like 1% battery in my body, not my phone, like literally me. There's a place called Hangover Trail, and it's pretty sketch. I had to do it at night just based on the time I got there. And my left leg had swelled up. I had an injury in it. So it was basically trying to climb up these cliffs with one leg. And you had to hop and then power and take another power step, throw your poles up, kind of scramble up. And if you don't have enough power to power up that, you wind up tumbling backwards. And then there's a very small ledge that if you miss that ledge, it's a nice quick
fall to your death.
Fall to the bottom. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So I fought through all of that. There's things in business and in running that you fight through. You just put your head down and say, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And then there's things where you have good people on your team that say, "Hey, it's time to cash it in, so we can do this another day."
Yeah, run another day, fight another day.
Yeah.
Oh, you said you went to the hospital.
I did wind up going to the hospital. So I had an agreement with my wife that if I had a cardiac event, I would stop. So she knows I really don't have an off button when I get out there. So it's basically just head down, drag the body across the finish line at all costs. And 2 years ago, when I finished the Triple Crown of 200s, which is 3 200-mile races, spaced out a span over about 2.5 months, 654 miles total. About the last 50 miles, I ran that with atrial fibrillation, or AFib. And I didn't really know what it was or how serious it was. And so I just kept on powering through. And kind of like in business, kind of, when you don't know how serious something is or how quickly it can end things, where you just keep powering through. And
Yeah.
so I did that. I waited 12 days to go to the hospital last time. And I didn't even go to the hospital. I went to the doctor and they sent me to the hospital. But it's basically like a 5-year-old with a drum set, just kind of banging out whatever rhythm it feels like. And your heart has no power. So after going to the doctor, being in that cardiac state, I had to go on blood thinners, which I don't take medication. It's really the first medication I've ever really been on. And had to do that for 6 weeks. And then they put me under, shock my heart, stop it, and then it restarts in hopefully a normal pattern. And if it doesn't, you get to do that 2 or 3 more times, and then hopefully it does before it becomes a serious deal. So this time I told her if that happened again, I would stop. So happened about 4 miles out from
Did your
an aid
watch tell
station.
you? How did you know?
I could feel it. I could feel it in my heart.
Oh, okay.
And my watch did. I mean, I was running and my heart rate told me it was like a 86 or something like that.
Yeah.
And, I'm trying to keep it at 120, 130,
Right.
something like that. So it was kind of interesting. I have a video of it if anybody wants to see what it looks like to go through cardioversion, have your heart get shocked, and then come out of it. The doctor came in afterwards and he asked me how I was doing. I'm like, well, I feel pretty good, but like, what am I supposed to do now? Just go to breakfast or something? And he's like, yeah, you're fine now. It's
Just
reset.
have to shock it. So next ultra race, in your van, you're going to bring the pads.
Well, we actually did carry, because Scott, who's on my team, you'll meet him in the Grand Canyon,
Okay.
but he has all these fancy, we had urine specific gravity gravimeters or whatever, where you could test how dehydrated you were.
You lost me at urine.
Yeah. Well, that's how you test it. So, so we have that. And then we had a portable EKG where you can put it's a 6-lead EKG. You put 2 fingers on each side, put it on your left leg, and it definitely confirmed I was in AFib. So,
Oh, boy.
anyway, I'm here.
I'm glad you're alive.
Yeah. Thanks.
Well, at least you got a good training run in for the Grand Canyon hike.
Yeah, I did 214 miles to train for 25 miles, and I think I'll be
You're
able
doing
to
okay? You'll be able to get through
I think
20,
so.
20, 24, 23 miles, 22?
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
So that's me. That's the update. But I did want to tie that back to business because Scott, who was there, he's my medical personnel on my crew. He's got all the bells and gadgets. He is a paramedic firefighter in charge of the fitness program for some county out in Washington State for the whole thing. So he's really dialed in. And so he knew I was in AFib, and I had already made the commitment. So I didn't even have to make a decision. Was I going to quit? The decision was made before I left.
Yeah, okay.
And so it was sad and depressing. I was one of 3 people that made it over 200 miles that didn't finish. So typically once you get past that 200 miles, you have that last big climb up Eldon, and then you're done. So, but I asked him, I said, I really wish I would have tested you, because, and this was kind of during this part where I'm grieving a little bit, so I'm kind of being ornery about it, and we're trying to have fun with it just to keep the mood light. But I said, what would you have said if I said I was going to keep going? And this is where it's so important to have good people on your team, in your business, just a part of your life, your crew, because he said, I would have wished you the best of luck, because I know if you said you were going to keep going, I wouldn't have been able to convince you otherwise. But he said, I would have taken the van and told you I was going home, because I can't watch it. I can't watch you go another 50 miles, climb up over Mount Eldon, which is a really steep climb up and down.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that was good that he had set those boundaries, and he was willing to be the kind of friend that I needed in that moment, to say, we fought hard to this moment, but at this moment, it's over, and let's pick it back up in October when we go out to Moab.
I like it.
So,
You're going to Moab.
yep, I'll be back in Moab in October.
Good man.
Matter of fact, I got one of my clients is going to come out and crew
Help
and
crew.
pace me, so that'll
Help
be
crew
fun.
you. Hey,
Yeah.
hit me up. Hit
All
me
right.
up. I might want to be on the pace crew if I'm eligible.
Well, we'll have to see. I've been looking at your Strava. I don't know. All right, so that's my update over the last couple of weeks. What's going on with Mark Brower?
What is going on with me? I'm just worried about my friend Tony. I'm excited about the Grand Canyon trip coming up. I am, just trying to be present and learn. I got a small win to report. About 3 months ago, I launched a newsletter, and right out of the gates, got 6 subscribers. And now I think I'm over 155. So I write a weekly newsletter, and it has to do with mindset, leadership, personal, like the battles I'm fighting, which I think any of us that are entrepreneurs know that it's all integrated. The family, life, mindset, like emotional, like we're at the forefront. We're at the frontier of our growth in like 20, 40 different areas of our life, right? And so I love thinking about live, like what it takes to push those boundaries out. And I've been writing about it, and it's been super gratifying. And first, can I share a little bit about that journey?
Let's hit it.
I think this is like super relevant, hopefully not just for me, but for other people. Jordan Peterson, one of my favorite speakers and writers, apologize in advance for anybody that's going to cancel me because I like Jordan Peterson. Sorry, not sorry.
If somebody's going to cancel because you like somebody, they don't need to be listening anyway.
Sorry, not sorry. So Jordan Peterson said that writing is the deepest form of thinking. I think that's so true. And what's been super gratifying to me is that as I've, God gave me the gift of like ideas. And sometimes, often, I got too many ideas coming in. Sometimes it affects my sleep. Sometimes it affects my presence with my family on the weekend. Sometimes like it impacts me. Like there's pluses and negatives to this gift of ideas that just flow through my brain. And I think it's one of the reasons like I pursued ultra running, because as you know, when you get to a certain point of pain, we'll call it, exertion, like the focus comes down to a singularity. And there's something really purifying about that, something really grounding about that, something really, I don't know, there's something there. But when I'm not 50 miles into a hard run, like my ideas are pinging off the chrome. And what writing has done for me is it's forced me, or it's allowed me, it's given me the opportunity to craft ideas into paragraphs that have to follow certain rules, and they have to kind of make sense, and they kind of have to flow. And so what's exciting for me is in this journey of expanding the frontier of my philosophy about life at every meaningful point, writing is, I think, accelerating that expansion of the frontier and clarifying the process. And I'm getting a lot more out of it. And I think some other people are getting more out of it. And I'm learning some really cool things there's no way I could have learned without it. And I'll touch on 2 of those really quick if you'll allow me.
Allowed.
No, notice I waited that time for an answer. I don't often wait for that answer. You were testing me. One of those ideas is now I just lost both of the ideas, and they were so important. Just kidding. One of the ideas was in the beginning. Writing has allowed me to confront something that I think is really important, and I want to write about that. I think I'm going to write my next issue about this. There's this idea of one and many, okay? And there's this idea of, and I'm going to conflate this idea of one and many with acres of diamonds and greener pastures. Can we do this?
Let's do it.
Okay. So the idea of one or many is that for those of us who want to live a full, meaningful life, and we're entrepreneurs and we want to grow, and like there's this idea that, well, I've got to impact lots of people's lives. I need to impact the many. I need to connect with the many. I need to do lots of things that are at scale, at volume. Okay, and that's the way I thought for years. And then there's this other idea on the polar opposite, that I need to make meaningful connection with one person, and that's it. That's all that matters.
Okay, well, I want to dive deep. I'm gonna put a pin in this just so we have a
Yes.
marker. We're gonna come back
Yes.
because in our next episode that we're gonna record,
Yes.
I want to lean heavy into this because that touches so much
Oh,
on
it's
what I want to talk about in the next episode.
great. Well, can we talk about it now too, or should I just stop
Well,
it?
no, you can keep going, but I wanted to just make a marker that we're going to circle back around in the next
Good.
episode
Write it
and
down.
talk
I
about
think
that.
you're going to have a lot of conversations about this. So I have a couple of stories to share. 2 years ago, I'm reading Alex Hormozy, and he's talking about how, like, The Rock and Conor McGregor, and Mr. Beast, and they just like point at something, and it's $100 million business immediately. Bam! Didn't have to pay the price to like learn how to, productize. Didn't have to source. Didn't have to build a brand. They were the brand. They built their brand. How did they build a brand? Because they knew how to attract and retain attention, and so this idea of building a personal brand was like, oh, my eyes are opened. If there's something that I can do that's meaningful, that get Epictetus said, "Give me a long enough lever, and I will move the world." Okay, so the thing that can extend my lever, I'm always thinking about what's that thing. Like, I want to have more impact. I want to go to the many, right? I want to impact the many. So I'm reading Alex Hormozy. I'm listening to him, and he says, and I'm thinking, I got to create content. And you know this, like a year and a half ago, we had this little mastermind for a little while, and Sarah Hatch and some other people were on there, and we're like, and Ironclad Sam was on there. He's gonna be in the Grand Canyon, yeah. And our buddy
Jared was in there.
Jared, I read it. Yeah. Jared, thank you for reading my mind.
Everybody took some action and did something a little bit different.
So
it was really
and
fun
your son
to watch.
was there, and it was so fun. And I got to learn about how he's obsessed about Nintendo. Anyway, so around that time, I'm reading Alex Hormozy. You're listening to him, and he's like, I crowdsource the ideas that are worthy of creating additional content on by posting them on Twitter. At the time it was Twitter. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, so I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking about like, just fail faster and just do stuff. You got to do it consistently. I'm hearing all these things. It's swirling around in my head. I'm like, okay, I'm going to start posting to Twitter, and I'm going to post 2 to 5 times a day. And I'm just going to commit to it. I'm going to do it for like 90 days. And I hope I can reach a lot of people. I start posting on Twitter. My views per tweet were in the tens. 20 to 80 views per tweet. Never any hearts. Never any retweets.
I feel bad. I'm gonna go heart you. I'm gonna find you now, and I'm gonna heart you on Twitter.
I was tweeting into the void, Tony. And it was very difficult. Here's why. Because I was judging myself based on reaction. I'm like, dude, I see these people that have tens of thousands of views, hundreds of thousands of views, hundreds of likes, dozens of retweets. Like, what is wrong with my brain? Like, I'm telling you, like the pervasive thought, I am not as smart as I thought I was. This hurts. But I'd committed to doing it, and I just kept doing it. So, guess what happened?
You got to 20 hearts.
No, I never got 20 hearts.
20 views? 20?
Yeah, I got over 20 views a few times, yeah. Nice. But somehow the algorithm put one of my tweets into Peter Lohman's feed. And somehow something I tweeted was interesting enough that Peter took it and posted it in his newsletter, which at the time had about 5,000 weekly readers. Now it's got 15,000. And next thing I know, I'm getting an email from a couple of people like, hey, saw that you were mentioned in my favorite newsletter, Peter
Hmm.
Lohman's newsletter. I'm like, what? Okay. So the end of the story is I then started, got familiar with Peter, met him at a conference. He featured me another time. Then we did a podcast together. Then we did another podcast together. Next thing you know, I'm on the stage of Broker Owner 2 years later, a couple months ago, debating live with Peter about something that we disagree about, and I heard a lot from a lot of people that it was like really engaging. They really enjoyed the conversation. There's no way I would have been there had I not tweeted into the void, where I thought I was actually tweeting to no one. Like, it was absolutely a low leverage, meaningless activity, but I'd committed to it, just trusting with faith that something was going to come of it. And one person picked it up. One person. And it changed everything for me. It boosted my confidence because I saw that he thought, some of my ideas were valuable, and he encouraged me. And then later, like three and a half months ago, in February this year, invited me to a mastermind where other people that were content creators were there. These guys were like insanely smart, and they inspired me. And when I was around, I'm like, hey, maybe I could do kind of stuff that like they're doing, and they're writing with AI, and they're doing some really cool things, and here's how they're doing it. And I got a couple like tips and a couple tools out of that. And then I started writing my newsletter 3.5 months ago, and then I was like spending hours and hours and hours and hours and hours on one issue, rewriting, obsessing about it, thinking way too much into it, thinking that this has to be perfect for the masses. And then guess what happened recently? I shifted my thinking away from the masses to the one. And I actually don't even care. Truly. Like I care, but I don't care if the masses like my newsletter or not. I've got one specific person in mind, maybe 2 or 3 friends in the industry in mind. I'm like, hey, you know what? This might help them. I'm writing this newsletter for them. If anyone else cares, fine. And guess what's happening? The more I write to the one, the more my subscriber growth rate increases. I'm starting to grow faster. There's something really magical about cutting through the noise and reaching out to the one. In my newsletter a couple months ago, I mentioned to everybody that I was leaving. Like, I put life on pause, and I hope I don't get emotional here. So just warning viewers, if it's cringy, turn down the volume or turn your face away. I put life on pause, and I went to Idaho with to get my neurodivergent son, who's 19. And he was lost and scared and didn't know what to do, too intense to live at home with mom and the girls, like didn't have anywhere to go, desperately wanted to come home, and just got put on academic probation, had lived in 4 apartments in 3 months. And this poor kid, man, like he was so desperate to get out of Dodge and get away from the pain that he took an early drive down to be at the hotel I was going to be at later that night. I had a later flight. It was Allegiant. It was the only time it came into Idaho Falls, and laid there in the lobby where they have breakfast the next morning with his hoodie pulled over his face and his AirPod Pros in for hours, surrounded by disheveled boxes and suitcases and an electric scooter. And then bring it together, Mark. Then we spent 3.5 weeks together. And I canceled everything on my calendar. We found a therapist. That was a miracle. We met with that therapist like 8 times. We found another therapist. And like his whole world started changing. But I was the one that got, the biggest payoff from that. And there were so many ways that my life was changed. Sorry. Because I cleared my calendar and I decided to serve the one. And he was the one. And he's a neurodivergent kid. Somebody could argue like really, Mark, you're running like multiple companies, and like, what's the cost of this? And like, but I'm telling you, Tony, there's something really, really magical, really special about stripping everything away except for the one, and the focus on the one is the realization that there are diamonds under our feet right now. And stop looking at the greener pastures over there, the many. Anyway, back to you. Like
Well,
you tell me about what you think about this.
all right. So there's two things that I'm picking up on this. The first one is you're 100% right. I wish I could think of him. I watched him on YouTube. I follow him on LinkedIn. I can't remember the guy's name, but he writes for really, really successful articles, posts, all of that on LinkedIn. And he starts every one of his posts with "Dear Son," and then he writes the post. And before he hits click to submit it, he goes back up and deletes the "Dear Son" part. And so he writes just to the one person. It just so happens it ties into the fact that you're talking about your son, but he has a very specific person that he's talking to. And so he's creating this content around topics that he thinks are really important, and he's directing it to somebody that he knows. It could have been anybody. He just happened to pick his son, and it makes it so that content is so much more meaningful because he's talking specifically to a specific person. And when you talk to a specific person, it allows you to reach people on a one-on-one basis. Even though it's one-on-one basis, you're connecting one-on-one with more and more people. And so I think that's really powerful. The second thing that I wanted to touch on was, and you skipped over this, I don't even know if you meant to include this in this, but you said, I run multiple companies. What am I doing going out, and what is the cost of this to go and do this? I mean, what a blessing that you are in a position that you've built a business, you've invested the time to do it right, you've created the systems, you have the people on your team, you have your core values, your expectations, your vision for the future of the company. And that allowed you to take time away, call a time out at work. I'm sure there was tons of stuff going on that you could have filled your calendar with, but you elected not to because you had the flexibility and the freedom based on the work you've put in to say, this is more important. This one could have been your son, could have been a friend. And we're going to dig into this next episode. I'm really excited about this because we're connecting on some things I wanted to talk about too. And so that to me is just really impactful for the people that are listening, that if you're struggling with a reason to put the time and effort into building your business right, that will run without you, that will allow you to focus on the things in life that are more important than leases and move-ins and move-outs, and not that those aren't important, but we can create systems so that those operate efficiently without having to have you as the business owner involved. And I think it's really special that you're sharing this with our audience because you've done the work up front that allowed you to have this flexibility and freedom to focus on what's important in life as opposed to what you had to do to keep the business going.
Yeah, and I couldn't have done. I feel compelled to say, God deserves a lot of credit for that. You know, it wasn't my natural nature necessarily to focus on one thing for long enough to move the needle in a way that creates stability and predictability and structure that could sustain beyond me. I did set out very early, intentionally, 14 years ago. I started a property management business with the specific goal that I was not going to just create a job for myself, but that I was going to turn that uncommon corner from self-employed to business owner. And that was extremely intentional. I was very committed to that outcome. It's why I chose property management, because my perception was recurring revenue, simple enough problems, at scale. I could build a company, a team around me. We could execute on those problems, and I could get my time freedom and money freedom. And so, I mean, sorry, thinking about my son just gets me emotional real quick. But maybe God led me down this path so that when my son hit 19 and he was going to have this, you know, these issues, I could be available. You know, our kids only have one dad. Our kids only have one mom. Can't outsource that job. You know, Isn't it great that we can build a brand and build a company and build a team and build, around the right ideas and the right commitments, and in so doing grow and transform ourselves into a better version of ourselves, but also gain access to be able to connect with the one. And you know what, in not a small way, I think that's what we're doing through our businesses as well. We're helping other people, whether they ever become business owners or not. We're helping other people achieve a greater financial strength in their lives, so that they can take the time when called upon to focus on the one. And that's a worthy mission.
Okay, I need to ask you a question
Yep.
because we're coming up in the end of this episode.
Okay.
You mentioned that there were two things. Was that both, or was that just the one? Or are we gonna roll the? Or are we
Oh
gonna just
man, you're
keep
gonna
them
make
in
me go all the way
suspense?
back. Yeah, I just went on a really long, deep tangent on that one. Um, I think the other thing was what was the one thing I talked about that the newsletter helped me? It helped me bring like structure to the chaos, the taking the abstract and putting it into concrete. It like gave me like all of those things were brilliant. Um, it also has helped me find my voice, and I think that tied into that idea of the one, because instead of trying to be all things to all people, it guided me almost like a funnel down into this is this is this is I can see more clearly now who I am, what I stand for, what really ignites my passion, and who I want to direct that passion towards to impact their lives. And so that it gave me permission to not have to try to be so perfect so I can connect with 100 people at the same time, but so that I could actually just show up with my own style at 80% of perfection, and acknowledge that's good enough. And then if I get, what the most gratifying thing of having this newsletter so far is, like, recently, if there's an episode that's particularly meaningful to someone, they email me back and they're like, man, this really hit home. This is exactly what I needed to hear. Like, you can't put a price on that. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I feel like God worked through me to reach that person. That was my one person, and it didn't have to be perfect. So anyway, I'm super jazzed about writing a newsletter. I think everybody should do it.
I agree, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about the success as this grows. I want to wrap up with something that you mentioned again, going back into the conversation. You said as an entrepreneur, there's 40 different areas of life that we're pushing the boundaries. We're going out, and as you mentioned that, and again, I just came off of the desert, being out, my
Your brain's cooked.
walk in the woods. But when you said that, it reminded me of a person on a path in the jungle and just kind of bushwhacking. And every step forward is we're taking our machete and carving a new path forward that we've not been on before. And maybe there was a path there before that somebody laid before us and it's kind of overgrown. But for us, we're having to take our machete, and every step forward, we're having to carve a new path. And I've had a lot of discussion lately about people who feel like they're faking it, or they're going to be exposed, they're going to be found out, and they have imposter syndrome. And I have I don't know what it is about my personality or whatever, but I am now, I get worried when I don't feel like I have imposter syndrome.
Oh, wow. I thought you were going to say you've never had imposter syndrome, and I was like, mind was going to be blown. But okay.
No, I live in it. I live in it because the way I feel like is if you're not experiencing imposter syndrome, and maybe this is just the way I justify trying to push the boundaries, but I feel like if you're not experiencing imposter syndrome, then you're probably coasting. You're probably doing what you're already really good at.
Yeah, or you're narcissistic and you should go seek therapy.
That's possible too. But for me, for those people that are struggling with, I'm doing something new, I'm afraid to fail, I'm afraid to expose that I'm doing something new to the team, and I don't really know what I'm doing, but I want to do it. I want to grow in this direction. I want to add so many doors. I want to implement a new program, and it might fail, and that's okay. I mean, I went 214 miles out of a 256-mile race. I'm at peace with the way it happened. I mean, I would have wanted to finish, but I failed forward. I pushed my boundaries. It's the hottest race I've ever run, and it was a cold year. It rained, and so
Nice.
it's just one of those things where I push my boundaries, and I will continue to push the boundaries, and I will continue to live in that imposter syndrome because I want to find out what my limits are. And I want to figure out the more I can do, the more I can help people. And you don't do that when you're sitting back, kind of coasting in the safe zone.
In ultra running, we talk about getting comfortable being uncomfortable. And it sounds like you found comfortable in imposter syndrome. So well done, Tony.
All right, let's wrap this one up. Mark, let's get him out of here.
Let's get him out. Go back out on the trail. You got this. We'll see you at the next aid station. Woohoo.
We'll see you.
All right.
Thanks for tuning in to the Property Management Success Podcast. We'll be back with another value-packed episode to help you level up your property management game. If you've got something valuable out of today's episode, please share it with a friend or colleague, and don't forget to subscribe and leave a review so you never miss out on future insights and strategies and tactics. Until next time, here's to your success.